Okay, I wanted to show you just a little bit about how I am constructing some of these pieces. Um, and I am right now in the middle. It's the very last thing I need to do here for this Nandor Haunty. Let me see, get rid of those. The bookcase. I've got the little books and everything drawn, and the very last thing is I'm coming in and making sure that these are all even and the same size. I've made a bottom piece. I took the top part off and made it into a double fold. Wow, that's just like trying to get that at an angle where you're not like, yeah, that's better. Okay. There. And you can see I had, let me go ahead and save this while I'm thinking about it. Turn the guides back on. The guides are what I use to make sure everything is straight. So I'll go in and draw and then straighten everything up by adding guides. And you can see here well, and it did it again. This is a 3.65 line, even though it's not saying it is. And I divide it into 3 with a line down the center so I can better center where my lines are and where items are. And you can see here, I've got a dotted line, I've got some decorative lines, I've moved around a little bit, and then these 2 colors right here. These are the foot portions that'll be on the bottom of the piece. If I'm going to reach around in here, and these are, this sort of little foot portion where they come together and they'll make a little corner there. And because I'm not doing a wild amount of measuring, there are 2 things that I'm doing that are attempting to keep the pieces within a certain size. Number 1, I'm working, my paper size is an 8.5 by 11, usually landscape. And then I am always working with a 3.65 line as my baseline. That's the line that you will see, again, as I reach over here again, the thickest line on all these is going to be a 3.65 line. And you can see the little bit of a difference here where this is 3.65 and that's a 2.65. So what I'm doing here is making sure that each and every one of the feet are the same size. I do not think that in any universe this is the best way to do this. I am not a math person. Or at least I'm not a math person in the way that most people think of being a math person. I kind of go on gut feeling. So my making all of these the same size, I decide what size I want this to be, and then I use my pen tool. Over here, let me grab this. I'll just draw something down here. And I'll draw the shape of something. And I'll go back in and say, no, I don't want, I need that to be a point, not a curve. And I don't want a line, and I just want it to be a color. That way, I can come in and use this basically as a little template to make sure that everything is about the same size. Now, when I say about the same size, these are going to be hundreds or thousands of a tenth off, of a millimeter off. You can see where I've got the lines here where this piece is centered on this line. This purple piece is centered. That's my blue guideline, and I have it centered here. So I'll come in, I'll grab this, and I know that I am being really super, like I want these things to match well. I'm going down to make sure there's nothing funky going on. This little bit down here, I sometimes leave so I know where to add in my guidelines. And you can see my outside line is not the right size. So these little handles here just means I've selected the tool in which I can move my guide points around. And you can see here, it's highlighted all over around here. Now, if we look back at this one, you can see, let me get that to there. The entire 3.5 line is out on this side, and it comes to the middle here. It really doesn't matter here on the bottom because I'm hanging it from this top line, so it's going to be the right size. I'm going to come in, move my guide point over, grab my next one, bring it out, come down, bring this one basically where it's supposed to go. And then I need to go in and make sure that it is exactly where I wanted it to go. You're probably also wondering, why do I use the bright colors? I sometimes will use grays mixed with I'll use a gray and a green, or a red and a blue. I generally choose contrasting colors. Okay, I gotta move this because I need to be able to see. Yeah, and now it's going all wibbledy and stuff over here. Stop wiggling. So that I can better see it. So I'm trying to get this line here in between these two lines here, and then I can grab these lines and put them back where they're supposed to go. The little hand tells me that I've actually got it, and I'm a tiny bit over on there. And I know that this will not matter, but the problem is, I will know. Come here, you. So I kind of eyeball this because it's a pretty small piece, dividing this in half, and then I know where that is, and I can kind of eyeball for the target. And then I go up and I make sure, okay, that's not right. This is what I'm aiming for right here. So I'm going to move that up. Sometimes it's smack on, sometimes it's not. Come on. I wish this had a little bit more finesse, this scroll bar, when I'm working really small. But again, I'm working with a free program, so you know, sometimes we don't always get what we want. Because you move it just the most teeny tiny bit, and then sometimes I've just got to go, screw it. I'll just come out and then come back in. And you can see that white line right there. I need to get rid of that. So I'm going to move this line in just a tiny bit, just so they're kind of kissing. And then that's how I do that. So you can see here, I've done one. I now have this pair here. And what I'll do is I'll just go along here and do, wow, I really am shaking this whole thing up. Oops. Z. Grab this and move it over. Let me move this back up so it's not so, I'm getting all kinds of reflection from the outside. And then since I only need one of these, and grab it and bring it over here. And you can see like this one's like way too big. And it's some manner of framing it or sizing it like you see in here, where I sometimes if I'm using a thicker line, I'll use half the line. I prefer to use the whole line on the outside and half on the inside. And I put in this line here just to make sure I know where this is supposed to go. And there are times in which I also use diagonal guidelines, but not very much. Like these, it's a 45 degree, and I really don't have a 45 degree. I have more like that's like a 50 degree. So I do it this way instead, using a template of my own making. And like I said, I know that isn't like the most mathematically correct way to do it, but I'm kind of going back and forth between over here. I prefer to work in metric, but it going back and forth between metric and imperial units, I don't like it. So some things over here for metric, I've simply measured or memorized. And then I'm trying to figure out if there's a code in here or a place where I can set it so that it will lock to metric for my drawing palette and for shapes, because that would be a lot easier, because I'm not paying any other attention to the size of the piece of paper or the size of my my surface, my drawing, other than this is 8.5 by 11, meaning I need to keep it on here, and I will occasionally glance up and I'll look at the inches and have an idea of how big the piece is going to be, but it's not hard and fast. Now, if I do want to get hard and fast about that, I need to get a proportion wheel, so I can make sure that those are completely correct. And I've talked about proportion wheels in the past, and my problem is I cannot find a metric one, which is making me a little nutty. So I need to talk to some graphic designers. Maybe some graphic designers that don't work in the United States. I don't know. Anywho, this little tutorial has become just a tick too long, but you can see this is how I'm doing this, and how I go about doing it. It's certainly not for everybody, but this is how I do it, and it seems to work for me. So, thank you, patrons. If you have any questions about any of my interesting methods, just let me know. Thanks.